we want to talk about today for the disability social. Um, we ended up on a load of tangents that were really useful for us. We didn't get enough time to really polish where this is, but that is kind of an important part of our work, is actually meet people where they're at and try and be as honest as possible and exchange as much information as possible rather than sort of perform in certain ways. So our three CICs are ethical activities, NeuDICE, and Queer Out Loud. And we're going to tell a bit of the story in a couple of directions. So we'll come back to ethical activities, which is what I founded after COVID, and I realized that I've never been very good at staying in employment. I've never managed to progress very far in education, but I needed something tangible to sort of express myself and my passion for the outdoors, but also people that don't have as much access to the outdoors as I've had. And ethical activities became that project into the 2021, 2022 after COVID is when that was forming. Fast forward, 5 years from when that started, the rest of this board captures the intersections between what happened next and our work with all the elements. So the yellow bit along the top, say, I think disability session that we ran, covering over some snapshots. Here's me and Mimi at the Outdoor Connection last year where we ran that workshop. Mimi has unlocked another level of recursive neurodivergent universe that you can put Miro boards inside Miro boards now. So this one here has kind of some of Mimi's reflections from there about their sort of outdoor lifestyle and passions and dreams. And then this is me over here with my sort of multiple personalities of, I used to do more things like this. This is Norway in 2012. This is more my kind of energy now in the open canoe. This is me and Tom after a overnight trip around the Isle of Wight for a few days sea kayaking, where that trip was the one where we formed ethical activities. And this is Senan and Ira, who were making a lot of noise in the background, but I was told you can't hear. So lots in here that we can explore more today. Rather than go through it all, we wanted to make sure this resource is available and we can refer to it kind of as and when we needed. The story I wanted to tell is ethical activities was the start, but where are we at now? Somewhere on this board of mine and Mimi's thoughts before this, we end up at what we've ended up calling Project 752. And something as simple as, we're based in Plymouth, there's loads of people who can't access the outdoors, which is what all the elements is about for helping work with. And selling out to do that, we ended up with these extra CICs, but also collaborating quite a lot more widely. So this is our shed 752 in Plymouth. It's a lot more chaos now, so it's a good job we took these photos. But there's a canoe on the roof of a wooden shed. There's a kayak paddle outside that you can see. And then there's a doorway into an African food court as well, which is right next to us in this community space. Opposite us is the Flax project that takes flax and produces their own sort of like yarns and linens from that, which is exciting. So really exciting space. That's where we're based. And then Project 752, we ended up with ethical activities, this idea that we want to be in nature. But very quickly, we needed neurodivergent specific business support. So NeuDICE emerged in response to that. It started nationally, but then our sort of grassroots bottom-up method in Plymouth is where this shed came about. Next door, the food court, Jabulani, Diversity Business Incubator, TBI. We're all just working alongside each other, puzzling through these different problems that we face. All the time we want to, go to the beach, maybe go on some kayaks or go for some canoe trips or some walks on Dartmoor. But actually, there's a lot of other problems that we're working on as communities in that space. Mimi will tell their story from their perspective, but Queer Out Loud became its own CIC somewhere in this journey as well. And another couple of important shout outs, which is African Delight have now taken on this whole space next door that was Jabulani. Clarice is running a food court there. And Den, Disability Enabling Network, that is Curtis, who's down below there, was involved in the Shed 752 collective as well. So Project 752 is this huge thing where we need something place-based in Plymouth, because the more people that we work with, it seems to just get more complex as a container for it. But right at the start of the journey, 5 years ago, was that desire for accessing nature with kind of meaningful, adventuresome, but fun and safe experiences, which is what ethical activities is all about. And I was going to hand over to Mimi to then let them sort of tell their story that threads through the Miro board in that way as well. Yeah, over to you, Mimi.
So I think one of the things that we were going to discuss was sort of like how Stu and I met, and then sort of my experience with all of this stuff from the perspective of physical disability. So Stu and I met. There's probably a photo somewhere on one of the many Miro boards of I used to work at a forest school. And had a lovely time sitting around a campfire, coming home smelling like smoke. And it was wonderful. But I had to cover for my boss who got stuck in Germany for a birthday party, and that was the birthday party of Senan, one of Stu's children. And yeah, Stu got chatting with me, scoped me out quite quickly as neuroqueer, and was asking about what sort of business I want to do, because of course neuroqueer people would like to set up businesses, and it was a very fair assumption. And so I was talking to them about an idea that I had about creating a space for queer performers to share their work. And that is where Cry Out Loud came from as a concept, was the idea of sharing poetry with an audience that genuinely understands. Plymouth is somehow full of poets, and all of them are like over 50, very straight, white, cis men that do not necessarily say anything bad, but do not understand a lot of the things that people were talking about when it came to sexual expression, or like gender identity and that sort of stuff. So started out as poetry night, and then sort of spiraled in the way that I think many businesses do when they're run by neurodivergent people. So now we provide like free gender affirming care items, so like binders, tucking underwear, clothing. We also provide disability aids, which have been donated to us by a like council housing scheme, which is a really exciting collaboration. And we also do research projects now, which has been through a collaboration with Bath University, and an organization called We Are the People, which has led to a comic which will hopefully be published in the next couple of weeks, looking at queer and disabled sexual expression and experience, which is a really fun project. But Stu and I have been working together for that entire time, essentially. Stu supporting me in basically trying to figure out what it is I'm doing and how to make that into a tangible reality. And a lot of explaining numbers that typically do not make much sense to me, which has been really useful. Um, in terms of ethical activities and the outdoors and why I went to the Outdoor Connection. So I was a very outdoorsy person when I was younger. But similar to Annie, I've also got fibromyalgia and hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And my bones and joints and muscles and all of that do not do the things that maybe they were designed to do. And so as I got older, the ability to sort of go climbing and hiking, and wild swims. Plymouth is an ocean city, and so we're surrounded by water. But my ability to do that has been significantly reduced in the last couple of years. And one of Stu and I's main projects together is trying to find ways for me to basically be able to do that sort of stuff again. And once we figured that step out, how do we then make that possible for others in our community as well? And yeah, so I think that's been an ongoing project of now I have my wheelchair, which is thankfully Access to Work funded, which is a very exciting purchase. We're going on an adventure soon to Plimbridge, and yeah, seeing like how can we then make other steps possible too. Um, yeah, I don't know if I have anything else to say, Stu.
Yeah, thanks, Mimi. That's great. I think the only bit I'll add before we can then sort of hand back to the hosts, and we are quite keen to kind of get discussing stuff rather than we could keep talking about stuff forever. So I think we've actually done pretty well for us to not do it. Was over here was one of like the incredible all the elements posts. These things happen, and like big up all the elements. Like you just do stuff like this, which really like on those days that are tough when you're running organizations and stuff like this, where 80% of our work is on a volunteer basis. And posts like this where we sort of feel seen, understood in some of the challenges, but also very much like validated in that actually the process and the method is like it's going to take a long time, but those little steps bit by bit are there. So this is a great post from the Audio Elements Instagram, and there's if you're into the Miro and you're kind of liking it, there's a link up here that you can use as well. And this is the outdoor connection last year, wasn't it? Which is great. So yeah, I'm gonna zoom out from the chaos. That's me and Mimi. Yeah, back to you hosts and the wider people are excited to see what we can kind of hang out and chat about today.
Hi.